In this video, we're going to cover the topic of interquartile range. Now, interquartile range is the spread of the middle 50% of your data. Whereas in one of my previous videos, we talked about range. Range is the spread of 100% of your data. So the difference between the two is that interquartile range is the spread of 50% of the data, whereas range is all of the data, the spread of it all. So to find the interquartile range, if we take a look at number 1, we have a list of numbers here. The first thing you want to do is order your numbers from least to greatest. So my smallest number is 3. And I want to make sure that I cross out each number as I go. That way I don't accidentally miss one. So now we have 9, 10, 14, 17, 22, 34, and finally 42. So our first step is complete. We ordered our numbers from least to greatest. After we order them from least to greatest, the next thing you want to do is find the median. And in one of my previous videos, we talked about how to find the median. And in case you forget, the median is the middle number. So if I was to karate chop this list of numbers in half, we would find the median. And the median is very easy to find. We're going to cross out our smallest value, followed by our largest value. And we're going to continue to do that until we get to the middle number. Now, always make sure that you cross out in pairs of 2. So if I cross out my smallest value, I want to make sure that I cross out my largest value as well. So I'm going to cross out my 3. I'm also going to put a little X below them for crossing them out because we're actually going to have to use these numbers again. So I don't want to cross it out and make it all messy. I'm just going to put a little X below them for now. I'm going to cross out my largest value. Again, cross out in pairs of 2. Now cross out your next smallest, your next largest, next smallest, next largest. I cannot cross out 14 here because if I cross out 14, I also have to cross out 17. And again, you have to cross out in pairs of 2. So if I do that, I would be left with 0 numbers left. So if you run across a scenario where 2 numbers are left, the first thing you want to do is add them together. So we're going to do 14 plus 17, and we're going to get a sum of 31. And once you get your sum, you're going to take it and divide it by 2. When you do that, you're going to get 15 and 5/10. And 15 and 5/10 makes perfect sense because that is right in the middle of those 2 numbers. So 15.5 is our median. And our median can also be known as quartile 2. So I'm going to put a Q2 below that. Also, where I put my line at, notice how it splits the data perfectly in half. There's 4 numbers below the line, and there's 4 numbers above the line. If you ever find your median and you don't have the same amount of numbers on the left and right-hand side of the line, then that means you made a mistake somewhere. You should have the same amount of numbers on the left and on the right side. So now that we found our Q2, we're going to find the median once again of our lower half of numbers. So 3, 9, 10, and 14. So let's cross out our smallest value, followed by our largest value. And again, we run into the same scenario. 2 numbers left, so we want to add them together. 9 plus 10 is 19, and then 19 divided by 2 is going to give us 9.5. And this one is known as quartile 1, our lower half of numbers, our Q1. And now we're going to find our median once again of our upper half of numbers. So 17, 22, 34, and 42. Let's cross out our smallest and largest values. And then we're left with 2 numbers again, 22 and 34. We're first going to add them together. If we add them together, we're going to get 56. And then 56 divided by 2 is going to give us 28. And this one is going to be known as quartile 3. So if you ever get confused on which one is which, they just go in order from smallest to largest. Q1, Q2, Q3. It's one of the easiest ways to remember it, just 1, 2, 3. And again, Q2 is our median, Q1 is the median of our lower half of numbers, and Q3 is the median of our upper half of numbers. And now we've done all the hard stuff. Now we just have to find our interquartile range. And the interquartile range formula is simply Q3's value minus Q1's value. In this case, we found Q3 to be 28, and our Q1 value was 9 5/10. So if we subtract those, we're going to get our interquartile range of 18 5/10 for our first one. All right, now let's move on to number 2. Let's find the interquartile range of this one. Let's start off by ordering our numbers from least to greatest. So we have 2, 3, 10, 16, 24, 29, and finally 37. So we ordered it from least to greatest. That's step 1. Now let's find our median, or our Q2. So we're going to cross out our smallest and our largest values. Again, I'm going to put a little x below them. Since you noticed in our first problem, we end up using the numbers again. So I like to put little x's below our numbers. That way I can just cross out the number the second time around. So cross out our smallest and our largest values. Next smallest, next largest. Again, we're crossing out in pairs of 2. Next smallest, next largest. Now this time around, we end up with one number left. If you ever end up in a scenario where one number's left, that is simply going to be your median. So our median for this one is 16, or our Q2. And again, if you take a look on the left side of 16 and on the right side of 16, there's the same amount of numbers on each side. They both have 3 numbers on the left side of our median and the right side of our median. So we know we found our middle value. So now let's find our Q1, or our median of our lower half of number. Let's cross out 2 and 10, and we're left with one number left, which is 3. That's going to be our Q1. And now let's go to our upper half of numbers. So let's cross out 24 and 37. We're left with one number left, which is going to be our Q3, 29. And finally, our very last step is our interquartile range formula, which is Q3. In this case, it's 29, minus our Q1 value, which is 3. And 29 minus 3 is going to give us 26 for our interquartile range for number 2. So before you go, I have a couple problems that I want you to try. So if I scroll down here, there's 2 problems that I want you to find the interquartile range for. So I encourage you to pause the video here. Try solving 1 and 2 by yourself, finding the interquartile range, and then come back and play the video and see if you got them both right. So at this point, I'm assuming you have paused the video, you've tried out 1 and 2, and we're ready to go over it. So for number 1, let's order our numbers from least to greatest. We have 11 as our smallest, 13, 23, 29, 30, 44, and finally our very last number, 65. We order them from least to greatest. Now let's find our median, or our Q2. Let's cross out our smallest and largest values. Next smallest, next largest, next smallest, next largest, and we end up with one number left. If we get one number left, that's our median, or our Q2. So in this case, it's 29. Again, our data is perfectly split in half. There's 3 numbers below our median and 3 numbers above our median. So we know we got the correct number. Now, let's find our Q1, or our lower half of number median. So let's cross out 11 and 23. We're left with one number left. That's 13. That's going to be our Q1. And now our upper half median, or Q3, 30 and 65 are crossed out. We're left with 44, which is our Q3. And our very, very final step, let's take our Q3 value, in this case it's 44, minus our Q1 value, which is 13. 44 minus 13 is going to give us our interquartile range of 31. Hopefully you got 31 for the first one. If you did, very, very nice job. And now we got one more. Let's order them from least to greatest. We got 9, 17, 23, 30, 54, and 76. So order them from least to greatest, and now we can find our median. Let's cross out our smallest and largest value, our next smallest, our next largest, and now we run across our scenario where we have 2 numbers left. So we first want to add them together. So 23 plus 30 is 53, and then 53 divided by 2 is going to give us 26.5. So 26.5, and that's going to be our Q2, or our median. And again, notice how our data is perfectly split in half. There's 3 numbers below our median and 3 numbers above our median. So now let's find our Q1 and our Q3. So let's start with our lower half median, our Q1. Let's cross out our smallest value and our largest value. We get 17, and that's going to be our Q1. And now let's go to our upper half. Cross out 30 and 76, and we're left with 54 as our Q3. And finally, to finish it all off, let's take our largest number, 54, our Q3, minus our Q1. So 54 minus 17 is going to give us an interquartile range of 37. And hopefully you went 2 for 2 on the independent practice. Hopefully after watching this video, you can successfully find the interquartile range of a data set, and I'll see you in the next video.